I really appreciate you joining us today. This panel is the Guerilla Tactics Cellular Bonding and Remote Production. We've got a great panel of experts on that topic here today. We've got Lowell, is it Thaler or Thaler? Lowell Thaler with Thaler Media. I'm going to let each of them kind of tell a little bit about what they do. But also we have John Landman from Teradek, Dave Belding from LiveU, and then Dan Houze with now BCLive, instead of Random House, formerly of Random House.
Yeah, I got sued out of that. You know, Random House, they were just like
only one letter different. Like, it's a tough crowd, man.
Yeah.
So if y'all would, starting with Lowell, if you would just kind of tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about your company before we jump right into bonded cellular and guerrilla tactics.
Excellent. I guess for the last 20 years, I started my own company. Primarily working with the PGA of America. That's the Association of Club Pros. If anyone's into golf, that's who they are. They have the PGA. They own the PGA Championship and the Ryder Cup. A little different from the PGA Tour, which I worked for prior to then. But basically, the PGA of America does not have an in-house production company, but we've been pretty much their in-house production company for 20 years. We do everything from long form to short form programming. We do all their ENG. We do from internal videos, award videos, to projects for their network partners, 1 hour shows, shooting ENG at the Ryder Cup, the PGA Championship, that is used both internally, but also the partners will run during the telecast different vignettes that we'll do, president's messages and things like that. So, and then since February we got into live, so I saw some opportunities there, and that's what we'll be talking about. So I'll pass it on.
John?
Good afternoon, everybody. Glad to see you still awake after a big lunch. Anyhow, so I'm from a company called Teradek, and if you look at the title of this, it's the Guerilla Tactics, and I think that we are probably making the smallest devices to slip in one's pocket to go completely guerrilla. Been doing that for a few years, and they've been used from anywhere from the back streets of Iran to get feeds out to the recent march from the south. So very, very popular in the guerrilla world.
Dave, you're up.
All right, Dave Belding, Sales Director for Sports for LiveU. I'm glad you all stayed awake through John's introduction.
Tough crowd.
He's left his lipstick on his glass.
This is going to be a heckling panel, I can assure you. No one's going to be bored.
So LiveU does a lot of work in news gathering primarily. That's where their core business is. In the sports market, we've seen a lot of our clients take on at-home production, from the professional teams to colleges to production houses to some brands, PGA Tour Entertainment, NASCAR, a few examples. It was pretty interesting when I got here. I walked out and we actually have one of our customers doing an at-home production from the show here, right out on the patio out here. So I'm not sure they're going to be doing any more today, but they'll certainly be doing a show tomorrow. So if you actually want to see it in work, in practice, it's here.
All right, Dan, you're up.
Dan Houze with BCLive Productions. We're based out of Los Angeles, all over the place. Proud to say that we use a lot of these guys' products right here, and equally just for different kind of jobs. Primarily in the entertainment space, we do all the stuff for Disney, red carpets, a lot of the car industry, Capitol Records. We do all the YouTube space encoding and video production inside of there. So it's a lot of fun, and we're always in guerrilla mode if need be. So happy to be here.
Okay, so before we start creating some discussion, some exciting discussion here on stage, I want to get an idea of the crowd. How many of you guys are in production? Raise your hand. All right, so for those of you that didn't raise your hand, what other kind of things do you guys do? Because it's nice to know your audience so that we can tailor the discussion. Anybody in, yes sir, where are you with?
Satellite transmission.
Satellite transmission, all right. Anybody else want to chime in? Yes sir.
Fiber transmission.
What is it? Fiber, okay, fiber transmission. So we got some transmission guys, we got some production people, and some very curious, mysterious people that will not tell us anything. So let's just, and we're not doing this as a panel where it's like, I'm going to throw out a question and you have to answer. We're just going to have a discussion. And the crowd can chime in if there's something you guys would like to dig a little deeper on. We're happy to do it. We do like to record what you say, so if you raise your hand, I will sprint out to you, hand you a mic, you can ask your question. But we're not going to do questions at the end. We're doing questions throughout, so while we're on a topic, feel free, raise your hand. We'll integrate you into the show. We do have a camera, and it's being recorded. So, for you guys on the panel, whoever wants to chime in first, what is remote production? And I know the two on the end are actually doing it for a living. But what do you guys consider remote production in the context of this discussion?
Well, I would say for me, it became more of just live. You know, after 20 years of doing a lot of things that were just long form, short form, there was a need to take advantage of some of the live opportunities. You know, for me, my client has the PGA Championship, the Ryder Cup. They sell for hundreds of millions of dollars the rights to that, but there is a lot of opportunity for remote production for non-spectator events, member events. There's 29,000 PGA professionals out there, and they have member events that are not spectator events, but there's a need for them to promote their membership and things like that. So I saw that need, and hopefully I'm taking advantage of that. That's one option. Another, as far as remote, there's something we did this summer called the Western Amateur Championship. The event's over 100 years old. They've never been on TV. Outside of someone going there with a camera and doing a clip reel, they had no remote production, no live element at all, and we changed that for them. So it was just an opportunity. So to me, remote production is nothing but opportunity, because there's a lot of people out there that have shied away for various reasons, mainly money, but now we've kind of showed that for a 10 or 7% of the cost, we can distribute their product live.
So I'm going to follow up on you. So dig in a little deeper, like what exactly is remote production? Because to some people, remote production means I'm going to pull up a truck and I'm going to do a show here at this site, but what is it in your case?
In my case, it's really just sending some cameras out there. For example, this Western Amateur Championship, we had 3 cameras out on the golf course. We had a camera in the clubhouse where our hosts were, and then we had a camera back at our home. Talk about at-home productions, we've taken it to the literal sense. Imagine the look on my wife's face who was in the back when I said, Susie, we're going to do a live show out of our back bedroom and living room.
So truly at home, not
Yes.
just figuratively.
Exactly. You know, using the company we have are LiveU units. I've got a couple of LiveU 600s, and nothing wrong with Teradek.
No. But we have to be clear that they are used to get the feed.
Yes.
Once you've done the production, right? So in order to feed your switcher, and which switcher do
Right.
you use? Do you have a
We have a TriCaster, right? We use a
Okay,
TriCaster, right? So we have like 3 cameras. Yeah.
Let's bring it down into the basic steps, right? So firstly, you've got to get the camera feeds to that switcher.
Correct.
And I assume a lot of the time, you know, you're on a golf course, you can't run a wire, right?
Correct.
So I think that's where
Right.
we slot in on live production. We do a lot of wireless transmission, right? So one of the products that we have in our arsenal, which are very, very useful, is something that we call the Bolt, which is an uncompressed wireless video transmitter, which means it can mix with the wired cameras that you're using. And, you know, being able to get, you know, 2,500, 3,000 feet from your switcher is a very, very useful thing to be able to do a live production, because you know, I was at a recent event at a church that was doing a live production, and they were telling me that they did not want to spend money on wireless because, yes, it does have a cost. And you know, it was a church. They had an older 89-year-old lady walking out of the facility, tripped on a wire, tripped on one of the cables, broke her hip. And you know, this is now a huge insurance issue, and the chief engineer is very, very rueful. They didn't spend the money on the wireless.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think in our case, similar to Teradek and LiveU, I mean, we do have the backpacks, and really the longest wire is just from the camera to the backpack. And so we send the signal up to the server, or it comes down in our back bedroom to a server, and through that to using NDI or SDI, we've done it both ways into the TriCaster, and we switch to live show, live text with the graphics. 3-play. I mean, we did it all. So for us, it was having the capability of going live out on the course with roaming cameras, you know, following all 18 holes, which has never been done in this particular case ever before.
So basically, you know, so what about your hosts? Where were they?
Oh, I had 2 people in the clubhouse at this particular event with one of our cameras, you know, with the backpack. Same thing. That was one of our signals going back home, and then having a return was the most important thing. You know, they're not out there on each hole walking with the camera. They're watching multiple holes happening as we're switching it. So they needed to be at a location to watch the return. And there are some things we learned about that as well. So, yeah.
So basically you had your cameras out in the field, video coming through bonded cellular back to your house, literally your house.
Right, from Chicago to North
with a program feed going back to the golf course so your host could comment, sending that back to your house in real time.
Correct.
That's amazing.
There was about a second or 2 latency because at the time we were doing that using Skype, so we lost a second there and we lost a second, you know, using LiveU. But the beauty about golf is it's not like it's a boxing match where it's a right, a left, or football saying, he's at the 10, he's at the 5, touchdown. I mean, it's golf. They kind of lay out anyway. So the 2 seconds really, I was very concerned before we did this event. It turned out to be a non-issue.
So at BCLive, what is your definition of remote production, or how are you guys leveraging this type of technology?
Several different ways. I can relate to what you were saying. My first big foray into remote production was for the Oscars. Worked with John and his team a lot at Teradek. We were with a company called Pop Sugar, consulting for them. And we went live from the red carpet at the Oscars using 3 Teradek Bond Pros that were doing bonded cellular with the pool feeds. Those are coming back to our studio in Culver City. And then we had a couple hosts on the red carpet that were also interviewing some celebs as they were coming off stage and some things that they had worked out with credentialing and all that fun stuff. That was coming back to us over fiber through a different option, and we put that all together in a show. So that could be an option of remote production. Another one that we did 2 months ago was the New York SUP Open down in, you know, right south there of on the left side near Jersey. And we used 3 LiveU LU600s, and we had them out on dinghy boats. And so the dinghy boats were following around the guys, and all of those were decoded back at another studio that had microwave internet coming into it, and we produced a show remotely there.
You just wanted to work the word dinghy into the
a dinghy
to the
dinghy
seminar.
Boat. Yeah.
He's been trying to work that one in all day.
Phil, I have a question for both of these guys, right?
Okay.
So they've both talked about the fact that they're sending feeds back to the cloud, pulling it back down into STI, and then switching at a location. But how long do you guys think it is before you're actually doing the switching in a virtual switcher in the cloud, you know, where everything is cloud-based? You're not pulling it back down, so literally you could be, not just in your living room, you could be here today, logging into some site and switching, adding dissolves, graphics. I see that we're sponsored by a Singular. If you look on in the room there, they've got all these coffee pots sponsored by Singular, which I think, if I am correct, we both use as the graphics overlays that you can now do in the cloud. But in your experience, have you guys ever done any production with switching in the cloud or producing cloud-based?
We've certainly dabbled in it. We always make sure that we have a host camera that's wired with SDI to go to. You know, I think that's the only smart way. I think as technology evolves, yeah, it's very exciting and whatever the future holds, but, you know, yeah, we'll see where that goes. Wouldn't that be great?
So this is something that all 4 panelists can answer, but how is this bonded cellular and remote production workflows changing the types of shows that get produced? You kind of already alluded to it a little bit, but how is this changing, you know, profits, workflows, and just saying yes to an event?
Well, I can chime in on that. We've got a customer that that had a mobile production truck, not a truck, he had a couple of trailers. And you just have to haul it around to go to cover events. So you have to park the trailer, power the trailer, run your camera cables, set everything up, do a show, They might be 6 hours away, 6-hour drive. Now you've got to pack all that up and go to the next event. They took all the gear out of their trailers and built 2 at-home production studios in their offices. Now they only send 1 engineer with X number of LiveU backpacks and cameras and tripods. They hire local camera operators, so they're saving on travel expenses. They're only traveling 1 person. All those signals come back into the production control room. They cut a show, and the beauty of it, because this customer has multiple kits, they can do events in different locations that can be as short as a 15-minute break between the events. So they can do a basketball game in one town and then another rugby match that's 200 miles away, and they can turn their crew around, give them a bathroom break, maybe get coffee, grab some lunch, and then sit right back down and do the production. They have the play-by-play announcers in studio who are looking at all the feeds coming in, and they don't have to travel. And from a cost perspective, it's saving a tremendous amount of money, allowing them to do 3 and 4 events a day, where before they could only do 1 event in one day. And they can take that cost savings and share it with their customers. And what they're finding is that the customers are still spending the same amount, but they're covering more events or adding features like a sideline reporter because of the cost savings. So that's a very practical application.
That's cool. John?
Yeah, I mean, I want to agree that cellular is an excellent way to get a feed up to the cloud. But then I want to give a shout out to the satellite guy here, because I'm sure we've all been in the situation where there is no cell reception, right? So you almost have to take out with you an army switch knife of gear that you can not only use or utilize cellular, but also use a satellite feed. That's why, this guy over here, for example, has both an Ethernet connection to connect to a satellite link and bond cellular. So, this is the kind of thing that you have to think about when you are going into that live. What happens when there's no cellular, or 1,000 people, 10,000 people turn up and pull out their phones. So, I would say in the real world, you've got about today a 90% chance that cellular will be effective, right? But then satellite, I would say, brings you up to that 99%. So, you've got to make sure you use the right tools for the right job, right? And there will be some times you need to roll in a satellite truck, right? So having those tools just means that you can be effective.
Cool.
Yeah, I think right tools for the right job is exactly right. We do most of the movie premieres for Disney on their animation side, and there's been actually several shows now where we had a gig circuit provided to us by an ISP, lovely local people there right in front of the El Capitan on Hollywood and Highland. But for some reason, whether it was ISP related or one time a dumpster or a dinghy boat, I just wanted to throw that in there.
It was crazy.
Somebody ran over the fiber
Streaming
cable. Somebody ran over the fiber cable, that wasn't tucked in, the yellow jacket really well or something, and the bonded cellular kicked in and saved the show. So I think it's right tools for the right, and we use bonded cellular pretty much in every show, at least as a backup to their ISP or their, as a third ISP, if you will, if they provide us 2 outlets.
So it's funny, a friend of mine's an IT guy in LA, Alex Pornell. I don't know if you know Alex, but he does a lot of big shows. He was telling me that when Old Spice did that live show in the wilderness, I don't know if y'all remember that, they had to run fiber out into a national park, and they didn't have the cellular backup, and they lost a feed, and it turns out raccoons had eaten through the fiber line. So the moral of this story is always have a plan B, but and raccoons, and they had to go coat all the cables with something raccoons hated so that they wouldn't eat them the rest of the weekend. But so that kind of covers. So let's kind of follow up on that question. So what type of events have you seen? And we kind of mentioned this when I asked the question earlier, but that you would have never done using traditional workflows that now you can say yes to. Is there any specific examples that you guys would like to share?
Yeah, I can just say that just 2 weeks ago we did an event for the PGA of America. They have an event called the Senior PGA Club Professional Championship. It's a non-spectator event. The only ones interested in that are the club pros themselves and the people that maybe they give lessons to in their home club. But there's 264 guys that have never had any publicity at all. And sure, it was a B2B kind of thing, but for 2 days, the beauty of this was we didn't run around a golf course for 2 days. We set up at a par 3, and the players came through, and they came to us. So it was actually a very simple show to do. And they loved it because there's 264 stories that were told that never had a chance of being told ever before. Would the consumer be interested in that? Probably not. But within the world of the PGA and their club pros, they were very interested in it because they've never had that opportunity before to showcase that many club pros over 2 days. And the response that we were getting, believe it or not, was incredible because if you're a club pro and you're giving a lesson, what great credibility is that you could tell your students, hey, watch me, I'm scheduled to be at this hole at 2:15, and there's your 15 minutes of fame, and you got 2 announcers that are Golf Channel announcers, they're talking you up, and you're a rock star for those 15 minutes, and you never had that before. So that was something that we kind of pitched to the client. It was an easier show than covering 2 days of the Western Amateur because everyone came through to us. So it was great. That's a great example of something we would never think of doing that before.
Well, was that not produced before because of the budget of producing it using traditional methods, or the logistics, or
a little bit of everything. First of all, the budget, number one, but no one ever thought of it before. It was just an event that happened. But now with the equipment that I have, it's like I'm able to pitch them new ideas, and now, so we started with that, and now there's other Club Pro events that they want to do the same thing with. That, to me, it's new business.
Where were you streaming this to?
This went to golfchannel.com, PGA.com on their YouTube site, and then their members-only site.
So you're finding, so is everyone here involved in streaming, right? This is why we're here. So you saw that there was an uptick because you went to multiple sites. Does everyone here go to multiple sites, or is it still, most people going to single destinations? Right? I was
raise your hand if you're a streamer and you do webcast stuff and you go to YouTube.
Right.
All right? Raise your hand if you go to Facebook.
Right. Raise both hands if you go to both. All right. Right. Okay. I was at a very interesting seminar the other week where a major broadcaster had spent $1 million doing a survey on people's viewing habits. And I'll use my family as just an example. The statistics spoke exactly that. Basically, my dad watches everything on Facebook. If it didn't happen on Facebook, it didn't happen. My son hates Facebook. He likes YouTube. My daughter likes Instagram and Periscope, and my mum likes to download the app. The moral of the story is, today in the world that we live, which is a lot different to 4 or 5 years ago, you really have to stream to multiple destinations at the same time if you're going to try and reach the audience that you want to reach. Because as one person said to me, I said, why do you, he asked me, why do we stream? You stream to be seen, right? So having a very easy way now to stream to multiple destinations, I think is going to be, the next wave of the streaming world that we're in.
That's a very good point. Reach your audience where they want to be reached.
Right.
What about from BCLive or Random House, trademark? Are there any shows that these new workflows have allowed you to say yes to that you would have normally not been able to pull off because of budget or logistics?
Yeah, 2 that I can think of. At E3, Xbox came to us. They had an activation of a new product they wanted to do, which is pretty typical. But they wanted to do a wireless walk and talk in their booth. They had a huge booth. And if you've ever done a job at any of these large convention centers, the wireless spectrum is all over the place. The frequencies are all over the place. So even if we had a Teradek Bolt or something like that, it's very difficult to get any of those frequencies approved or reserved for you, and it just doesn't happen. It's really, really challenging. And they wanted this to be about a 30-minute show. So what we said is, you know what, we'll just use a bonded cellular and with the camera and send that back to a control room in our LA studio and produce the show there. But the walk and talk can just happen, on the camera for a little over 30 minutes, and they had a reach of over 1 million people just on their Facebook page alone.
So it
that was
wasn't overly
exciting.
produced, it was just content that was now and relevant and interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but normally we would have said no to that show because they insisted that it be wireless, and they insisted that it be sort of this walk and talk kind of vibe. Which, if you're outside or you're in a more controlled environment, it's easier. But especially at E3, when you have all of this, the spectrum is just full. It's pretty much impossible with wireless. So we were able to do that, and they were really happy.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Dave, anything you've seen that was just revolutionary and interesting?
How much time do we have?
I know.
I've got lots of examples. I'll just cite a few of them. University of Oklahoma covered a golf tournament. They virtually had no budget for it. They couldn't afford to pay for a production truck or a satellite uplink and to run all the cabling. So we helped them out with some gear. They ended up with 8 of our backpacks. They have all the camera gear. They've got the student interns that want to get something on their resume. So in a very affordable way, they brought all those signals back to their Sooner Vision control room. They laid in their graphics, did their replays, had an announcer. That went out to the regional Fox Sports net. So that was actually a broadcast, not a stream. We've got a college conference that just did their cross-country championship. So they had a unit and a camera on a golf cart. They followed the lead pack. They had some other units that they strategically placed around the course, and once the pack would go by, they would pick up and relocate and pick them up going by again. So that's another one. It could have been done with wires, but it would have been cost prohibitive. The one example that I really like is a customer that's now using our technology to cover fishing tournaments. So you can't run wires across the water.
That sounds exciting to watch. Let's watch everybody fish. All right, guys, we're here.
You'd be surprised.
Live fishing.
You'd be surprised. Yeah, there's
I'm
some
sure there's an audience.
some nuts out there that watch. I actually watch more fishing than I'd ever watched
Do you really?
in my life. I wanted to see how
I
the
didn't know
show
if you
went.
wanted to see it, or you just.
I just wanted to see how the show went. So when I had the call with the customer on Monday, I knew if I was in trouble or not.
You saw. Was it interesting?
Fishing was boring, but what was really cool is when the angler turns his hat backwards and sets his pole down. That's a sign to the camera operator to sit down because we're moving. And
You saw
they were
somebody fall
moving
in.
across the lake, and the camera operator actually shot at the speedometer. They're doing about 80 miles an hour, and the
Finding the honey hole.
picture was great.
No, that's
So-
actually what they call it.
Anyways, it's
I hate to tell you that. I do know fishing. Well, that's pretty cool. It is neat to see, working in production, to see new things being made. So let's go on to our next topic. And this could be from 2 different perspectives. So we have 2 manufacturers in the middle and 2 production companies on the outside. What types of customers are you seeing that are interested in this type of capability? We've already talked about some stuff, but I just want to give people food for thought. And this may be more from the manufacturer since they are seeing everybody that's buying their gear. But who, if you're a production person and thinking about going into a RIMI or bonded cellular solution, or you're a truck that wants to add another line of transmission, who are you guys seeing that's really opening doors and pushing this capability and workflows forward?
Well, we're seeing a combination. We see a lot of production houses. I used the one example of an existing customer. We've got several other that are looking they're looking to retire their trucks, and they're looking to leverage the cost savings and the benefits of the at-home production model in order to do more events at a lower cost. So a lot of interest in that area. Universities that have existing equipment, but they don't necessarily have the budget to cover some of the lower tier sports or the Olympic sports. Now they're able to go to coach and say, we're going to cover the softball tournament this weekend that we've never done before. And from the coach's perspective, they love it because it's a huge recruiting tool. So those are a couple of examples of people that are really interested in starting to adopt to this workflow.
John, have you seen anything novel and interesting?
Well, I mean, we're working from anyone down from doing stuff free to up to $10,000, right? So we cover a very, very wide gamut. you know, we make a free switcher on an iPad that takes multiple feeds in from phones and stuff. So we really see, you know, the bottom. I would say that everyone here is a little bit higher up in the food scale from there.
This isn't a hobbyist conference. you
Yeah,
said?
it's not really, but it's a great way to learn about switching. It's a great way to learn and educate people about, you know, how you do a live. You know, you grow up and you buy a TriCaster, right, Phil?
That's what we hope.
I wanted to point out, we did one event, not sports related, but it was very unique in that it was truly a worldwide at-home production. A unit in Cape Town, South Africa, Seoul, Tokyo, Paris, Miami, and Malibu Beach. All 6 of those transmissions came into a production control room in New York, and a show was cut. So that was truly a worldwide at-home production.
And that's becoming popular. You know, we just did, well, that was 6. We did one on every hour. It was for a church that had, as the sun was rising from every different church around the world, they had the children singing. And you couldn't have done that before, right? I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, we can't take credit for that. We've got to, you know, that's, you know, the internet, right? That's
Right.
IP. If that didn't exist, none of this would be possible.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah, thanks to alcohol. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, we have derailed officially. So, you know, I'm going to derail from bonded cellular for a minute. Does anybody use, yes sir, go ahead.
Before you do that,
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up something with bonded cellular that doesn't involve Teradek or LiveU, but it's the same kind of concept. You know, something that's become very popular for us is marketing groups of these large agencies or corporations or whatnot that just want to have really good bonded, or just want to have internet for their production team or for their marketing team to upload to social media and that sort of thing on the ground. Also, when you're doing bonded cellular,
We do play there, though.
huh?
We absolutely do have
I
that.
did see the press release. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it out?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Oh
That's
yeah,
so,
we've had it for
yeah.
a while. Yeah.
You guys have it as well. I think being able, though, to have the 2 separate products, or being able to do both at the same time, not just it's a hotspot or you're encoding to the web, we've seen a lot of growth in that area. So let's say if we're doing a production and we want to go live on Facebook using bonded cellular, well, you want to actually watch that stream and make sure that it's running okay, and you want to be able to log into Core or to LiveU Central and make sure that you can operate it efficiently. And sometimes it really comes in handy to have bonded cellular that's not video related. So we use the PepLink a lot. PepWave has a product called PepLink, and it's a bonded router that literally just takes 8 SIM cards and bonds all the data together. And then you have a max throughput and whatever speed that you want to pay for in that package. And that really comes in handy on a lot of productions that we're doing.
That's cool. Do any of you guys use like NDI or?
No.
I knew that. I knew I was getting a no
Go
from John.
wireless.
But you know, because we are seeing, like when I was still at New Tech, we did a deal with the Weather Channel. I'm not anymore, but I'm going to tell this story. So the Weather Channel was doing the eclipse coverage, and they had 40 cameras coming in from all over the country, and it wasn't wireless. It was all through, you know, hardline internet. But they took it all these cameras as the eclipse hit all these cities. They basically followed the eclipse across the continental U.S. And how do you see a hybrid workflow of like IP, like NDI or SMPTE 2020, whatever?
2010.
Well, there's a couple of them. So 2010, 2220, and all these other great flavors of SMPTE. But when you start blending these workflows together, where do you see this going? And what do you see that doing for your business and y'all's business and BCLive? I mean, are you doing hybrid yet, or where you're doing NDI and bonded and bringing all this together? Do you pick?
It's adding up all the risks, you know, and it's adding up all the points of failure, and it really depends. I can't tell you how many shows that we've spec'd out for NDI, but then at the end of the day, we don't have control over the network or the venue.
Right.
The producer really wants to do NDI. They're all excited about reading it online, and you know, and it's like, yeah, on paper it works great, but I can't get a network engineer to sit with us during that show that works at, you know, the LA Convention Center or whatever. So it all depends on how much you're willing to risk and weighing all those options, right?
Anybody else want to comment on that one?
I think the only time I really use NDI is in our at-home productions, whether it's using live text and for the audio,
Dante?
Dante, the control panel. So yeah, I mean, that definitely helps. But yeah, we use it.
I mean, I would say that, we as a company are an open protocol company, and we add protocols as and when we see them existing in the environments that we live in, right? We recently added SRT, which is a protocol to send a feed over the public internet with encryption and with error correction in low delay. We do transport stream, we do RTMP, we do RTSP, we do HTTP. I mean, we add these protocols on a regular basis, and we may add NDI, we may not add NDI. There may be NDI 2 that we'll add, or NDI 3 that we'll add. Everyone's.
What about NDI 4?
We're jumping 4 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah, we're looking more now at how are we going to move 4K, right? What are we going to do? Are we going to do HEVC? Well, we're doing HEVC, and if anyone wants to see what HEVC, which is H.265, what that actually looks like, come to the stand. I got some HEVC content playing there. And it looks like we'll be using that to transmit 4K over the public internet at about 14, 15 megabits per second. Whether we go VP9 or whatever, we are constantly looking at the different protocols out there.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I've seen NDI become very useful in a facility that's locked down, that has the infrastructure in place, that has separate VLANs created just for certain applications, right? Universities, churches use it a lot. They can put a camera over in their parish hall. They can put a camera feed in their chapel. They can, have the control room behind the church and kind of stream it all out of there. So I think. Of course, I'm not poo-pooing NDI. I don't want to give that impression.
So far, he said dingy and poo-poo in my panel. No, just kidding. I'm sorry, I'm worse than a 15-year-old.
One thing that I think is a problem when we talk about these different things here is that we're jumping from talking about video over the public IP for streaming, and then we jump to NDI, which is an in-facility IP technology, and these things really don't mix. We either have to talk about in facility, in production, doing RTSP point-to-point or NDI point-to-point or cable point-to-point or even an old-fashioned BNC point-to-point, what are the advantages of each? Or whether we talk about, getting from here over the public internet. And I think it does, it confuses a lot of people when we talk about NDI. NDI is not a protocol that you use to get to the public internet. It's only...
Actually, it is.
Well, you cannot stream NDI from point to point over the public internet.
We've done it.
Well, you're the one.
No, we got a bunch. I mean, Sienna Systems now has a tool that you can get.
Yeah, but it's not.
And what it does, it allows you to jump. It allows you to jump subnets. And
well, that's not the public
Phil,
internet.
He's trying to pivot. He's trying to pivot.
Please I can't send a point from here to Mozambique.
It's getting heated. It's a lot of heat here in the streaming, sports streaming summit. Yes.
So just to get.
Hold on, let me come down. You got to talk on the mic so that you can be heard for all eternity on the archive.
How long is eternity? A while. Okay. So I was just going to go with the panel here. You kind of went a little off topic for the folks in the room here of going into NDI, because that is a whole other conversation. But to get on the topic of Guerilla bonding, one question I have for the panel and everybody in the room, it's all great to get the trust in multiple cellular carriers in the hope that you get out. But I work a lot of big events, and everything's great for rehearsal, and then comes showtime, and everybody's on their phone, and we are just FUCKED. And it doesn't matter how many carriers you've got. You got Verizon, you got Sprint, you got AT&T, you got all these other sub-carriers. And so my real question to the panel is, in this guerrilla market, because that's when the real guerrillas come out, that's when the real monsters come attack you 2 minutes before air and your bandwidth just went down to nothing. What procedures do you do at site survey to check the capacity of the network, and what precautions do you have for plan B when the network goes to shit? And third, how can you monitor the actual demand on that cellular network so you know you're about to hit a critical mass? Is there a linear way to kind of know where you are, or are you just really wonderful and then all of a sudden you're gone?
I could speak from my experience. I purposely pitch my clients to non-spectator events. There's a bit, for what I do, there's a huge market for that. Maybe it doesn't interest a whole lot of other people, but for me, that's a big market. That's totally untapped. So, am I at the Honda Classic where there's 60,000 people in the, on a weekend? Yeah, we did that. That was our very first event, and we learned from that. But that really was not why I purchased all this equipment to do what I'm doing. I'm looking to specialize in the non-spectator events because for me, that's where the opportunity is. I'm not going for the other big events where there's a lot of rights issues and I got to pay a lot of money or something like that. So for me, that's not part of my equation. Now, that doesn't mean that I could get to a place and it's like, oh man, what happened to my signal? I mean, I was just down in Palm Springs last week on a job, and while we're down there, there's a chance we're going to do something in February right around the corner. So I had my LiveU out there and I did a site survey. And we were in a golf cart, all 18 holes. I saw where the signal was strong and I saw where the signal wasn't strong. And so I'm able to, with the pre-production of doing the site survey, I'm going to minimize, hopefully, my risk. But my risk is already minimized because that's the business that I'm going after is non-spectator events.
And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's a lot of folks that think that on paper everything works everywhere. You go to a trade show, you look at all the equipment, yeah, it works. Keeping it limited to a non-spectator event is a definite safe place to be, and thus you can have a better success rate. But there's a lot of folks, whether it be red carpet, whether it be concerts, whether it be pre-shows of football games, whether it be parades, you name it, everybody, a lot of the customer base, especially the younger customer base, thinks that, internet always works, and they don't understand what happens now in that bonded cellular was the holy grail to not getting connectivity, but in fact it could be the mousetrap that take you out of business because of a failure is if everyone's expectations are greater than the technology allows. So I think that's great to say you're doing non-spectator events as a disclaimer, just like 5.8 in wireless video. It works great on a film set when you're on a movie lot or in somewhere in the woods. But go in the middle of the Staples Center in the middle of a playoff game and the space is crowded and what worked at rehearsal may not work. So again, back to the question, how do you guys then, how can you monitor the health of the cellular network in real time so you know when trouble's around the corner? Or is there such a thing? Is there any biofeedback that you can get off of your hardware? And then for producers, how do you warn your customer and let them know that they're truly on the edge, even though it worked great in rehearsal?
Well, I'll chime in here. I think that it goes to doing, you got to do a little bit of homework before you do any production. You've got to know where you're going, what you're doing, what your event is. There are some tools out there you can use to do pre-site surveys without even going to the site to understand what your chances are of getting a good cellular signal. We have a lot of customers that know that our equipment may not be the best option for them when you've got 80,000 fans in a football stadium, for example. The good news is the SAT guys and fiber guys like to hear that, because if you understand the technology and its advantages and its drawbacks, then you can plan accordingly. The HEVC technology has been a huge help because we don't need the same amount of bandwidth to send the same quality signal. So that has helped tremendously, but there are times when it's just not going to work, or you have to have alternative plans like dedicated Wi-Fi. There are tips and tricks.
So Dave, real quick, what are some of the tools that you've seen customers use to do those site surveys? Do you have any specific you'd like to share with the crowd so that they can write these links down?
Open Signal.
Open Signal.
Well, the website, no, they put everything on the app now, which kind of sucks. But now you got to look at it on your phone. But
all right.
Download the app. You can go anywhere in the world. It'll show you the carriers. And anywhere in the world. It's like Google Maps, but it shows you cellular connectivity in any.
So you pick your service provider, and it tells you what the cellular.
It shows you the service providers in that area, and you could drill down on a specific provider if you want to know.
Past results, it doesn't show real time.
Yeah, it's more current. It's not.
It's It's very current. Yeah, and it's user-generated data, which is one of the reasons why I think they went to the app exclusively, because I was using the website quite a bit, but I'm not giving any feedback. But now when I'm on the app, it's actually looking at my phone and generating feedback.
It's open signal. All right, we got another question.
I'll keep it brief because we're on time. But about 5 years ago, I was reviewing a lot of these different Cellmax devices and so on, and there were a small number of alternative AP providers emerging to specifically sell into cellular bonding service operators. I've not followed it for a couple of years. Is that trend still continued? Are there still alternative access providers that you can use, like MVNOs with different SIM cards?
At least in the US, we're pretty much down to Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint. I mean, they are the cover. But you know, over 90% of the US, even more, I would say that we have coverage. And when you aggregate 3 of them, 4 of them, you have a pretty. But
there's no one, for example, setting up direct peering into some of the major CDNs and.
No, there's discussion of you know, the government rolling out a security type private cellular network that, you know, maybe we'll get a slice of.
The congestion's typically appearing at the egress rather than at the mast, isn't it? Because the mast, you either get your cell slot on the RAN or you don't.
Well, I mean,
it's the egress from that onto.
You know, one of the things we've done, if you look at our devices, we've put something. I have, as my Alabama TV station engineer said to me, he says, "Man, you got a big ass antenna." Yeah, I got a big 8-inch, 4 big 8-inch antennas within my cellular bonding, which are high gain, right? So that giving you the theory that, you know, if you take out your phone, how big's your antenna? You'll be lucky if it's 1.5 inches. So the theory is that I can reach antennas, I can reach towers that you can't. And the example I've been given is during the hurricane last year in Florida. I had a weather guy who wasn't able to make a call, but he could get video out because we were reaching antennas, right? So hopefully we'll be able to reach over that, you know, 100,000 people that are reaching, or you know, we're looking for those kinds of improvements as well. You know, amplifying our antennas and just knowing what we're competing with, and you know, coming up with different technologies to get past that.
For the eclipse that happened, we had a client, Funny or Die. They were broadcasting from Oregon, and we set them up with an extender for the LiveU product, and that product is great too. It's kind of the same concept where it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that I understand it is that it knows what it's pulling from on the main unit, and then it'll actually reach beyond that to the other cellular towers around it.
Right.
That's essentially it. It's a remote device that can be located you know, thousands of feet away from the primary transmission unit. So it gets away from the crowd. It can be a wired or wireless connection to the unit. So if you're in an area that's very crowded, use a football stadium, for example, you can actually put an extender up on the press box and connect to it wirelessly. That extender will hit towers that people with their phones aren't hitting because it's got the high gain antenna. So that's one solution.
All right, we got one more question back here in the back. Flow Sports in the house.
This might be a dumb one, but what are you guys doing for comms when you're doing Remy productions?
Bill, what do we do? What I do, built into all of our bonded gear is a return path for comms, and we integrate with you know, the RTs out of the world or anybody else. So we also integrate with the Unity Intercom, which is a very, you know, which is based over cellular, right? So cellular intercom, cellular bonding. I mean, you know, someone says, well, if you haven't got cellular, you can't use your intercom. Well, if you haven't got cellular, you can't use your content. You can't use your bonding, right? So that's a very nice, a very popular cloud-based intercom system.
So we have IFB built into all of our, one-way IFB built into all of our equipment, so you can get an IFB back to the camera operator or the talent. We've got a customer that developed his own little belt pack two-way audio system. I'd be happy to share that information with you afterward. We've actually wrote up a best practice tips and tricks document for at-home production that kind of answers a lot of those questions and gives you some ideas. And it's not something that we just dreamed up. We actually went out and talked to our customers, and they shared with us, some of the information. John mentioned Unity Intercom. I didn't know about them. My customer, Philadelphia Eagles, told me about it.
It's really nice.
It is. We've sent them a lot of business.
Yeah.
We should get a cut of that somehow.
We should.
Another great solution if you're using just regular cellular bonding, not video, but with the PEP wave or whatnot on site, we use ClearCom. We have a free speak system, and then the ClearCom also has, it's more on the higher end, right? But you can dial into a server, a remote server with the ClearCom system, and it's called Concert. It works great for us, really low latency and very effective.
I will say
you just have to have public IPs. You got to be able to talk to it.
That's just VoIP though, right? VoIP card.
No, it's two-way. It's two-way through the ClearCom system.
I will say in our experience,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, would you?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we did,
Always butting in this.
that's me,
Never.
We did an event, in August. It was Western Amateur Championship, and we had, we were using Unity. That was the second event that I tried Unity with, and it's a wonderful product, but for us it wasn't 100%, and I needed to find something else. And what you were talking about, the belt pack, that's exactly, I got a hold of their best practices, and I contacted the guy, just like they suggested, who's actually in golf, works for the tour, and I talked to him, and he modified a belt pack, and I bought 4 of them, and I can honestly tell you, this last event we did was flawless. And to me, what happened was, it went from the conversation that we had after we did the post-mortem for the Western Amateur. What were the 2 biggest things we had that I wanted to fix? One was communications, and the other was the return. And for this event we just did 2 weeks ago, there wasn't one syllable of discussion talking about I need to fix the communications and I need to fix the return, because this modified belt pack did it. And recently, LiveU came out with a video return server. I demoed it one day, I bought it the next, put it in action the next week. Flawless. So I'm not a shill for LiveU. I'm just saying that it worked for me. And for me, as far as the communications, that was by far the #1 challenge I had. And this belt pack was awesome.
I think that's a good way to end this. Let's hear it for Lowell, Dave, Dan, and John. We appreciate you guys. It's always good to have some spirited discussion at a conference.